Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Literary Lutheran Reads the Book of Concord. This is Friday's recording, and today we will be finishing up the third commandment. I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoy making it for you. Let us begin. How then does such sanctification take place? Not like this, sitting behind the stove and doing no rough work, or adorning ourselves with a wreath and putting on our best clothes. But as said above, we occupy ourselves with God's Word and exercise ourselves in the Word. Indeed, we Christians always ought to keep such a holy day and be occupied with nothing but holy things. This means we should daily be engaged with God's Word and carry it in our hearts and upon our lips. Psalm 119, verses 11 to 13. But as said above, since we do not always have free time, we must devote several hours a week for the sake of the young, or at least a day for the sake of the entire multitude, to being concerned about this alone. We must especially teach the use of the Ten Commandments, the Creed, and the Lord's Prayer, and so direct our whole life in being according to God's Word. At whatever time, then, this is being observed and practiced, there a true holy day is being kept. Other things shall not be called a Christian's holy day. For indeed, non-Christians can also stop working and be idle, just as the entire swarm of our church workers do. They stand daily in the churches, singing and ringing bells, but they do not keep a holy day in true holiness, because they do not preach or use God's word, but teach and live contrary to it. God's word is the true holy thing, relic above all holy things. Yes, it is the only one we Christians know and have. Though we had the bones of all the saints, or all holy and consecrated garments upon a heap, still that would not help us at all. All that stuff is a dead thing that can sanctify no one. But God's word is a treasure that sanctifies everything. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 5. By the word, even all the saints themselves were sanctified. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 11. Whenever God's word is taught, preached, heard, read, or meditated upon, then the person, day, and work are sanctified. This is not because of the outward work, but because of the word, which makes saints of us all. Therefore, I constantly say that all our life and work must be guided by God's word if it is to be God-pleasing or holy. Where this is done, this commandment is in force and being fulfilled. On the contrary, any observance or work that is practiced without God's word is unholy before God. This is true no matter how brilliantly a work may shine, even though it is covered with relics, such as the fictitious spiritual orders which know nothing about God's word and seek holiness in their own works. Note, therefore, that the force and power of this commandment lies not in the resting, but in the sanctifying, so that a special holy exercise belongs to this day. For other works and occupations are not properly called holy exercises, unless a person is holy first. But here is a work is to be done by which a person is himself made holy. This is done, as we have heard, only through God's word. For this reason, particular places, times, persons, and the entire outward order of worship have been created and appointed, so that there may be order in public practice. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40. So much depends upon God's word. Without it, no holy day can be sanctified. Therefore, we must know that God insists upon a strict observance of this commandment and will punish all who despise his word and are not willing to hear and learn it, especially at the time appointed for the purpose. It is not only the people who greatly misuse and desecrate the holy day who sin against this commandment, those who neglect to hear God's word because of their greed or frivolity, or lie in taverns and are dead drunk like swine. But even that other crowd sins. They listen to God's word like it was any other trifle and only come to preaching because of custom. They go away again, and at the end of the year they know as little of God's word as at the beginning. Up to this point, the opinion prevailed that you had properly hallowed Sunday when you had heard a Mass or the Gospel read. But no one cared for God's word and no one taught it. Now that we have God's word, we fail to correct the abuse. We allow ourselves to be preached to and admonished, but we do not listen seriously and carefully. Know, therefore, that you must be concerned not only about hearing, but also about learning and retaining God's word in memory. Do not think that this is optional for you or of no great importance. Think that it is God's commandment, who will require an account from you, Romans chapter 14, verse 12, about how you have heard, learned, and honored his word. Likewise, those fuzzy spirits are to be rebuked, who, after they have heard a sermon or two, find hearing more sermons to be tedious and dull. They think that they know all that well enough and need no more instruction. For that is exactly the sin that was previously counted among mortal sins, and is called acedia, i.e. apathy or satisfaction. This is a malignant, dangerous plague with which the devil bewitches and deceives the hearts of many, so that he may surprise us and secretly take God's word from us. Matthew chapter 13, verse 19. Let me tell you this. Even though you know God's word perfectly and already are a master in all things, you are daily in the devil's kingdom. Colossians chapter 1, verses 13 to 14. He ceases neither day nor night to sneak up on you and to kindle in your heart unbelief and wicked thoughts against these 3 commandments and all the commandments. Therefore you must always have God's word in your heart, upon your lips and in your ears. But where the heart is idle and the word does not make a sound, the devil breaks in and has done the damage before we are aware. Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 30. On the other hand, the word is so effective that whenever it is seriously contemplated, heard, and used, it is bound never to be without fruit. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 11, Mark chapter 4, verse 20. It always awakens new understanding, pleasure, and devoutness, and produces a pure heart and pure thoughts. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. For these words are not lazy or dead, but are creative, living words. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. And even though no other interest or necessity moves us, this truth ought to urge everyone to the word, because thereby the devil is put to flight and driven away. James chapter 4, verse 7. Besides, this commandment is fulfilled, and this exercise in the word is more pleasing to God than any work of hypocrisy, however brilliant. Thank you for watching The Literary Lutheran Reads the Book of Concord this week. I hope God blesses you in all you do and say.